Hi friends, today I am going to discuss about final modifier in Java. The final keyword is used to restrict modifications in Java. Final keyword can be applied to variables, methods, and classes. So let's see what is final variable. If a final variable can be assigned only once. If a variable is final, it can be assigned only once. Reassignment of variable is not happen. If we try to change its value, we get a compilation error. So let's see an example. Here inside a main class, I'm taking a final variable x is equals to 10. At the time of declaration only, I have initialized the value of x with a 10. So we can't modify the value of x because it is final. So in order to access the x, we have to create an object of main class and access the value of x. So if I compile the code and pair on the code, it works fine. And if we want to modify, it raises a compilation error because it is a final variable. So we can't modify the value of final variables. So here I have modified the value of x with 100. So whenever we try to compile the code, it raises error. Can't assign a value to final variable x. And if it is not final, we can modify. So let's see if I remove the final keyword, it works fine. So if I compile the code, here I have removed the final keyword. So modification is allowed. So if I compile the code, it compiles fine. And if I run the code, it prints 10 and 100. Modified value of x also printed here. If it is final, we can't reassign the value. So we can't modify the value of x. So another point is, if we not initialize the value at the time of declaration, we must initialize the value of x inside the constructor. So here we can initialize the value. So if we forget at the time of declaration, we can initialize inside the constructor. It is valid. So if I compile and run the code, it works fine. So here is a similar example which I have explained, and let's see the key points. A final variable must be initialized only once. We can't reinitialize the final variable. And if not initialized during declaration, it must be set inside a constructor. We have seen this. Use it to define constants. Here, the value of pi is always 3.14. So we can declare it as final. So nobody can change it if we declare it as final. Final variables with constructor initialization. We have already seen this. And let's see final method in Java. In Java, a child class inherits methods from its parent class. As we all know that all the methods which are present inside the parent class can be accessed to the child class, can be accessed from the child class. Child class have access to all the methods inside the parent class. If the child class is not satisfied with the parent's method implementation, it can override the method to provide its own custom logic. This feature is called method overriding. If a parent is declared a method X, if a child is not satisfied with its implementation, it can change the implementation of method X. But if a parent declared that method X as final, child cannot modify the implementation of that particular method. So if a method in the parent class is declared as final, the child class cannot override it. This is usual when we want to prevent modification of a method's behavior. So if a If a parent doesn't want to modify that particular method, he declared it as final. Let's see an example. So here I'm taking class parent and declaring a method public void method name is study, and in that parent declared as child must take MBBS, that is medicine. So if I create a child class child extends parent. So here child is a child class of parent which is extending the parent class. So here child can modify this and he can keep here VTech. So here the parent method is not final, so child can modify it. So whenever we are creating the child objects, child C is equal to new child and C dot study. Here the output is BTech. So whenever we run the code, the output is BTech. But if parent declared it as final, public final. Here the parent is declared study method as final. He says that he, child should study MBBS only. So he kept here as final. So child cannot re-implement the body of that particular method. So if I run the code, it throws an error says that study in child cannot override study in parent. Overridden method is final. So it is final. So we can't override it. Here the parent kept it as final. So child cannot modify that method. So whenever the method is final, the child classes or the subclasses cannot modify the implementation of that method. So it doesn't happen. And if you run the code, if you create the child object and call the study method, it outputs as MBBS only because it is final. Parent declared study as MBBS only and he kept it as final. So no child can change that. If we try to change, it throws an error. So child cannot change, he must study MBBS only. So whenever the method is final, any child or subclass cannot change that particular method. And let's see the example. Here also a similar example which I have explained, like class YouTube ad and user. So the play ad says that YouTube ad watch this ad for 30 seconds, but user says that skipping this ad less than 10 seconds. It is valid because the method is not final. But if it is final, we can't skip. If the method is final, this implementation is not valid because YouTube kept it as final. So you should watch for 30 seconds. So if it is not final, you can skip. This is how final works. Final works with methods. And let's discuss what is final class. When a class is declared as final, it cannot be extended. No child classes allowed for final classes. Inheritance is blocked here. So inheritance feature is restricted for final classes. You can use the class, but you can't modify it by creating a subclass. Let's see an example. Here, there is two classes, parent and child class. So whenever we are extending parent, it is valid here because the parent class is default here. It is not final. So if I run the code, it doesn't raise any error. If I run the code, it runs fine because we can extend the parent class. But if the class is final, now there is a problem. If a parent class is final, there is no chance of extending that particular class because it is a final class. We can't extend it. So now if I save the code and run the code, it raises error says that cannot inherit from final parent. That is, the parent class is final. We cannot inherit that parent class. If it is not final, we can inherit. If it is final, we cannot inherit. So here, final restricts the inheritance. So if a class is final, we can't create any subclass or we can't extend that particular class. So here the class parent and rules and here child. If the parent class is final, we can't extend. If it is not final, we can extend. So let's see an exercise. Please pause the video and answer the questions. What happens if you try to reassign a value to a final variable in Java? The value changes without any issue. The program crashes at runtime. Whenever we are reassigning the value, it raises compilation errors. Because whenever the variable is final, we can't reassign. Where can the final keyword be applied in Java? Where can we apply? We can apply for variables, we can apply for methods and classes. So all of the above. We can apply anywhere. And what will be the output of the following code? Class A, final method show, and class B, show is overriding. So B class is overriding the show method. And here show method is final, so we can't override. So it raises a compilation error. So option C is correct. Fourth question. What is the effect of declaring a class as final in Java? So if a class is final, it cannot be subclassed or inherited. It cannot be inherited. It can be subclassed. No, it cannot be subclassed. Option B is correct. Fifth question. How can a final variable be initialized if not assigned a value at the time of declaration? If it doesn't assign any value at the time of declaration, we can assign it in constructor. So it cannot be initialized later. It must be initialized inside a static block. It must be initialized inside a constructor. Option C is correct. Thank you. Please like, share, and subscribe for more videos.